Hi guys, welcome back to this video, and this is going to be a bit more of a discussion style video rather than a sort of wrap up or unhaul, etc. And this video is going to be about sort of the way that I rate the books that I read and why I rate books, what's good about having a rating system, but also some negatives and some reasons why some people I know don't use a rating system at all. So the first part of this video is going to be how I rate my books. So I use a 5-star rating system, mostly because of the fact that that matches up with the system on Goodreads, which is the app that I use to track my reading and the books that I own. So when you finish a book and you log that on Goodreads, you have the opportunity to choose whether or not it gets 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 stars, depending on how you enjoyed it. In terms of my own personal reading, I do tend to give out half stars occasionally, which I will go through what those mean for me. And when I do that, I'll sort of round up or round down depending on sort of how close to each rating I think that it is. And then if I'm staunchly with a half star, I'll then put that in brackets at the beginning of my review, just more for my own personal benefit than for people reading my reviews, because I write my reviews mainly for me. But yeah, let's just get into it. So a 0-star book, I know this isn't technically on the star rating system, but I'm just going to include that here, is a book that I DNF or did not finish. So these are books where I started them, gave them a good shot, didn't end up finishing them, and therefore I don't feel like I have a sort of leg to stand on really in terms of giving it a star rating, so I just choose not to rate them. And yeah, I'll put up some books on the screen here of examples of each of my star ratings, so you'll be seeing some examples of books that I've DNF'd and therefore got 0 stars. So the next rating is a 1-star, and this will be a book that I found deeply offensive. It will be something that normally I did finish, but I found out things afterwards, possibly, or just the subject matter or the way that things were handled, or yeah, this is just going to be a book that I really didn't like. I very rarely give out 1 stars because of the fact that if I get through a book and it sounds like it's going to be something that's going to really annoy me, or like there are going to be huge aspects of the plot that I think are incredibly badly done or incredibly offensive and they're bothering me in terms of the reading process, I normally just DNF them and I don't continue reading them. If I can find some examples of some 1 stars, I'll probably put them on the screen here, but I don't give them out very often. But yeah, that's a book that I really hated. So a 2-star book is a book that is pretty bad in my opinion. I think that it was it's a rating that I normally give to a book that I just didn't like, but it didn't do anything that wrong that made it deserve a 1-star rating. So again, I rarely give these star ratings out, but if I have some examples, then I'll pop them on the screen. I think the one that comes to mind immediately is I remember giving Snot Girl Volume 1 a 2-star just because it made absolutely no sense. But yeah, if I can think of any others, they'll go up on the screen here. So a 2-star book for me is something that I didn't really like, but I didn't absolutely hate. So the next star rating up is a 3-star, and these are the books that I read from start to finish and I just thought, meh. They're books that I probably wouldn't think about again. They're probably books that I would just get rid of very easily. I wouldn't want to keep them on my shelves. And so, yeah, I often don't have much to say about these books because often they were just fine. So, yeah, that's that category. So this is where I start getting into half stars. So I do often, or relatively often, give a book a 3.5. So these are books that don't fit into the 4-star category, but I didn't just feel fine about them. I thought they were fairly good, and I sort of use this category as if a book got this rating or below, it means that I just automatically get rid of it once I'm finished. So this is a book that I thought was good. It was fine, but it was nothing to shout home about. I enjoyed the reading process, and these are books that are probably just quite forgettable, at least for me in terms of what I enjoy in fiction. So that's really what I'd say about a 3.5. So the next category of books is a 4-star. Now these are books that I really enjoyed. I thoroughly enjoyed the reading process. I really liked the characters, the plot, etc. I've put some examples of 4 stars here, and a 4-star or above is a book that I will definitely keep once I finish it. And I think that that's a good cut-off point for me. So I want my shelves to be full of my favourite books when I look at them. So that's why I keep 4 stars and above. So the next half-star rating that I use would be a 4.5. Now, books normally get a 4.5 for me if they were really, really excellent, but they just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. And I'll put a couple of examples here. Again, I would say that 4, 4.5 and 5 for me are quite solid reads, but I do have subtle distinctions with them, but I'll put some examples here. And then the final category is my 5-star reads, and these are the sort of books that I read where once I'm finished, I just want to hold them to my chest and love them for the rest of my life because they were just incredible, incredible reads. I think that they're the sorts of books where I close them and I have the feeling of what the hell do I do with my life now that this book is over. So if I don't get a feeling from a book like that, I very rarely give out a 5-star. So that was my star rating system, but also I think that something that changes from person to person is what influences what star rating they give it. So for example, I think that the 2 things that influence what I rate a book mostly are the sort of execution of the book, whether or not it was well written, and the sort of how well crafted the storytelling was. And then the second part, and in my opinion the most important for my rating system, is my enjoyment of it. So I'm far more likely to rate a book higher if it was an incredibly enjoyable reading experience, even if it wasn't a literary masterpiece. Whereas if I think a book is incredibly well written and I can really value what it's doing and the way it's crafted, but I didn't enjoy it, then I'm not going to give it a higher rating. So that's how I choose to rate my books. So the next part of this video is talking about the pros and cons to rating books and having a rating system. So obviously, given the first part of this video, I think that the pros outweigh the cons for me. I really enjoy having that system and rating my books. So I think a couple of the pros would be that, 1, it gives me a very good cut-off point for when I get rid of books. So instead of getting really sentimentally attached to books and being like, oh, I'll keep that because I bought it from here, or I remember this person gave it to me, I just have that cut-off point and I'm like, if I didn't enjoy it that much, then why am I keeping it? I want to only keep favourites on these shelves. So it provides a really good sort of way to classify books that I'm like, I liked and I'm going to keep, versus I liked but they're not good enough to keep. I think another really good reason, for me at least, to be rating books is that I can very easily communicate very quickly how I thought about a book to my friends and family and now you guys. So for example, I'm a part of quite a number of book groups. I have a number of my friends who are on Goodreads, and so when they see a rating for me of a book, they know how I felt about it, and therefore it's very easy to sort of collate what each of us felt about books. And I think that when people choose not to rate books, which is completely fair on them, you have to do a little bit more sort of digging around in terms of reading through someone's review in order to find out exactly what someone thought of it, which is fine. I mean, people's rating systems or choosing not to rate a book is completely up to them, but I just find it an easy way to communicate. So some of the cons which some of my friends who have decided to switch to not rating books after rating books for a while, and they've told me about some of the reasons. One of which was that they felt that it was impacting their reading experience. So this was where, as they were reading a book, they were already trying to pigeonhole it into a star category, and then that would indicate what they expected of the book later on. So it was then quite difficult for them in their heads to shift that book around a different star rating, even if it sort of deserved to be in a higher or lower category, given that's what they'd pigeonholed it into at the beginning of the reading process, which I can totally understand if that's how someone reads. It's not something I've ever had a problem with, but I can totally understand that point of view. Another thing that I've seen more on the internet than I have with my personal friends, but that is that people who work in the publishing industry or something similar, if they have a sort of personal platform where they are releasing what they think of books in terms of star ratings, they can then sometimes get into a bit of informal trouble with where they work or with their colleagues. So, for example, if someone who works for a particular publishing imprint is reading a lot of books from that publishing imprint and not through malice, but just happens to not be enjoying what they're reading and therefore gives it low ratings, it then looks bad on them. They're giving the company a bad rep. So I've seen some people who work for certain publishing houses either just stop rating books online altogether, or they'll completely change their profile to make it so that it can't be linked back to them, or they'll just not rate books that they are in any way affiliated with. So I think the second example that I've seen of this is where someone who works in the book industry is reading a lot of books that are then written by colleagues and friends and people that they know in real life, as well as sort of consuming their work. And then I've seen instances where if that book gets a low rating, it's then sort of created a wedge either in their professional relationship or in their personal one, where people sort of get the lines blurred in terms of liking someone's work and liking someone's character. So I find that some people have chosen to not rate books for that reason, or again, just not rate books that have been written by friends or colleagues. Some people will put a little disclaimer at the top of their review saying, for full honesty, I know this author and blah 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 blah. So it's I think something that can get people into not tangible trouble. I've never seen someone sort of fired over it, but I can see it leading to some complications in terms of interpersonal relationships. So yeah, those are some of the pros and cons to having a star rating system, and just a little bit of going into how I choose to rank what I read. So I'd love to hear what you do for a system and how you choose to track books. Do you use Goodreads, or is there any other apps that you would suggest that you think are better? I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, I'll talk to you down in the comments. Bye.